And so the archaeologist doesn't go before the digging, as it were, on the roads or whatever starts. They come afterwards, or do they sometimes go out before?
Normally, it's something that they do after the construction's already began, because nobody knew it was there. They're go and they start to do their work, and then all of a sudden they run into something and they have to stop their work, call up the archaeologist. There are, U.S. Forest Service pays people to do, it's called cultural resource management, and they actually go out and do land surveys. They look at the topography of land. They try to find any evidence that they can, and if they locate a site, then they conduct excavations. So, there are a lot of government programs that do that now.
So heritage studies, I understand, is becoming fairly important. How does that work to preserve these sites? I seem to remember I was reading that either if they can keep it intact, that's the goal, but if they can't, then they do other things to record it. What type of things would they be doing?
Well, in North America, we have, with NAGPRA and other legislative laws that have been passed that protect remains in North America. It's very hard once you find actual human remains. If there is a native population that can say that they are from that area, then they can essentially sue for the right to those remains, and that's prevented a lot of further archaeology from being done on. Kennewick Man is one of the most famous examples of it. Kennewick Man was locked up in Congress for years, and finally, a year and a half ago, scientists were actually granted the right to examine the remains. But that in North America, you have a lot of that where you run into the jurisdiction of government, whereas over in other countries they don't have the same laws to protect and return remains to native peoples. And one of the hardest things, and the reason why it takes so long, is actually trying to prove that descent. So it's very difficult.
And how would that be done? DNA or radiocarbon dating or whatever?
Actually, it's a matter of where they live. Most of the time, there's not any DNA that can be done if the remains are old. If the remains are 100 years old, 150, if they can obtain DNA from the remains and obtain DNA from somebody who says they're related and they match up, obviously, that's fairly concrete proof. But most of the time, it's a simple matter of our tribe lived on this land. You found the remains on this land, therefore they must belong to our tribe. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes a real difficult argument.
Mm-hmm. And where does UNESCO, organizations like that, where does that fit in here?
UNESCO, they help protect a lot of sites. Once a site is actually found, if it's determined to have cultural relevance, a lot of times they'll go in and protect that site from having construction or development on it, anything like that. They do fund some operations, but they're it's another government organization essentially, just like the rest of the government organizations that are pitching in to help out with all this resource management. They're kind of almost one and the same, but they do help to protect the sites, and that's their main contribution is actually protecting the sites.
Mm-hmm. So how much further do you have to go in your education?
Next fall will be my last semester at BSU, and then it's a matter of grad school. I still have to decide whether I'm going to get a master's degree and then a doctorate, or go into a direct doctorate program. So probably another 2 to 5 years after that, depending on which direction I do go.
Mm-hmm. And what are your factors in considering that, the master's and the doctorate as opposed to just the doctorate?
Really, it's a matter of what program I end up deciding is the best fit for me for the research I want to do, which I haven't made up my mind completely yet. And on one hand, I want to do the German archaeology. On the other hand, I want to do the North American, and eventually I want to do both. So I have to decide which one's going to benefit me more, what type of program, and that's really about it.